While Shannon was speaking to the young person affected by unemployment, I went to meet with the Bishop of Manchester, David Walker. What do you feel that the current situation with homelessness is?
Well, I think homelessness is getting worse. There's more people homeless now than there have been for a while. There's people who are street homeless, but there's also a lot of people who are homeless in that they don't have anywhere permanent to live. They might be in temporary bed and breakfast accommodation. You might have a roof over your head, you might have four walls, but it's not a proper home because it's not something permanent, it's not something you can rely on. Somebody's homeless if they don't have a safe and secure place where they can live with some degree of security of tenure. So if you're in somewhere that you might be chucked out of any time at the whim of the landlord, that's not having a home. If you're overcrowded, that's homeless. If you're living in a place that's insanitary because there's water running down the walls, that's homeless. But to not be homeless means to live somewhere that is fit for purpose, fit to be a home.
How do you feel that it's changed in the last 3 years?
It's increased over the last 3 years. I came back to Manchester to be Bishop of Manchester pretty well exactly 3 years ago at the end of 2013, and I've seen it increase. Often, even in the early morning, if I'm walking across the city centre, I just count how many people I can see sleeping in doorways or sleeping by the side of the road, and those numbers have gone up to 2 or 3 times in the 3 years that I've been here. So those numbers are increased, and that's usually a sign when the street homeless numbers increase that the wider homeless figure is also going up as well.
How do you feel that employment and benefits link to homelessness?
Well, a lot of people become homeless because they can't afford to pay the rent where they are, and sometimes they can't afford to pay the rent because they have a problem with their benefits. It might be that their benefits are stopped or they're sanctioned, or for some reason there's a delay in paying benefits. Often when somebody's been, if their circumstances change, like they had part-time work and then that job finishes, it can take a while before they manage to get their benefit claim processed and the money kicks in. And during those particular periods of time, people can be very vulnerable to being made homeless if their landlord isn't one who gives them a bit of slack.
Do you feel that the issue of homelessness is invisible in Wythenshawe?
I think homelessness is invisible in most places once you get away from the city centre. The same issues that affect every other area, in relationship breakdown, people falling out with their partner or their parents and getting chucked out. The same issues around mental health, the same issues around debt are present in a place like Wythenshawe as much as they are elsewhere. And I'll bet that tonight there'll be quite a number of people in Wythenshawe who are sleeping in a friend's spare room or on a friend's sofa, something like that. So you're right, it's invisible, but it is there.
Do you know of anything that is being done to tackle the issue in Wythenshawe?
Particularly through the Wythenshawe Community Housing Group, there's a number of things that we're trying to do in Wythenshawe. One thing we're trying to do, we try to help people manage their finances, understand if they're getting into debt, so they're less likely to end up in a position where they're evicted from their property because they can't pay their various bills. So we try to help people with their finances one way or another to direct them towards services that can give them advice. Because it's really important if people in one sort of accommodation is no longer suitable for them, but Wythenshawe is where they've got their friends, that's where their family are, that's where their support mechanism is, their work or their doctor or whatever it is. The last thing I'm going to see is people, when they're vulnerable like that, ending up in some other part of the city where they don't know anybody and all that informal support disappears. I want people to be able to stay in Wythenshawe where they've got friends, where they've got relations, where they've got support. And so the wider we can make the range of the types of accommodation that we can provide in Wythenshawe, the more likely we are to prevent people becoming homeless.
Do you think that's a way that we could eradicate homelessness completely?
I think there'll always be people who get into a mess, particularly if it's something like a relationship breakdown. We're not going to stop that happening, particularly mental health problems. We're not going to stop that happening, and we're not always going to pick up everybody before they've got to the point of ending up without somewhere to live. But what we can do is pick them up far more quickly and have a better range of services to provide for them when they have ended up on the street.
What do you feel that people get out of helping the homeless?
I think as human beings, we're actually built to care for each other. I believe that's something that's God-given within each of us, that we have that capacity, that desire to help other people and to be able to make a real difference in people's lives, to be able to do something that just treats somebody with dignity, with respect as a human being, It's good for the person who's being treated like that, but it's also good for the person who's doing it, who's got that opportunity to treat another person with dignity and respect and to make a real difference in that person's life.
As Charlie investigated the effects of homelessness further, I went to interview local MP Mike Kane on the current system of benefits. Thank you for taking the time to be interviewed for our documentary. How does homelessness and unemployment link to benefits?
Well, you're very welcome, Lucy. Thank you very much for asking me in. I think the key thing is that we have lots of jobs, particularly in South Manchester and Wythenshawe. And the reasons people find it hard to access those jobs sometimes, if they're on benefits currently, are usually to do with health issues, and mainly mental health issues. So there is a direct correlation between people who are generally out of work and living on benefits and health issues, particularly in our area.
What is the current situation with benefits?
Well, we've had a very harsh regime the last few years of sanctioning, and it's been very difficult for people. So if they miss appointments at the job centre, the DWP, or they fail to take up work programmes or do the requisite number of applications, they get sanctioned, and that has been devastating for them, their lives.
How do you think it's changed over the last 3 years?
The evidence has shown that the sanctioning actually has not worked and has had a detrimental effect, and you compare it to other European states as well, where they don't sanction, yet they tend to get more people who are vulnerable into work than we do here in the UK.
What would you say to people who say that people on benefits are scroungers?
Well, I'd say try living on benefits for a few weeks and then see how you feel about that. We need a civilised society where people either with mental health difficulties or people who go through all sorts of difficulties due to lifestyle, life changes like disability, like having a disease or like having a car accident, that we rely on each other to help each other out in those cases. So we need a strong safety net, but to call people scroungers would be wrong, plain and simple.
Do you think that people have an actual understanding of what it's like to be on benefits?
Well, we've seen Benefit Street on the television. Well, that seems to be more of a soap opera, really, than real life coverage. I've relied on benefits in my life, particularly early on. My father died, and he was the only income earner at the time, and I was just leaving college, and I had a period on benefits, and I didn't enjoy it one iota, and I always worked when I could, but when we were stuck, the state was there for us, and I would hope going forward that as a civilised society we would always want that for people in our community.
Do you think there's a way to eradicate the need for benefits?
I think you've got to be optimistic in politics. I think you've got to say that we want a society with full employment. I have to say, what we have in Wythenshawe at the moment is a situation where there are actually lots and lots of jobs. But the people who are out of work, and some of them claiming benefits, are struggling with self-esteem, depression, mental health issues, physical health issues. So we have to help them get into the work that's available. But sometimes the work that's available, the people that are struggling aren't trained for that work. So therefore we have to make a special effort, and I know particularly Wythenshawe Community Housing Trust has a scheme that helps people who are struggling to get on a pathway to work, to get on that pathway by giving them skills, by giving them confidence, by giving them curriculum vitae training courses, and by directly talking to employers, because the best way often to get a better job is to be in a job. The best way to get training is to be in a job. And that would be sort of my message. In addition to always supporting people who are struggling, we always need a pathway, an opportunity for them to come back into the workforce.
Thank you for taking part in this interview.
Thank you very much.